Welcome back to Chemical Technology. As we have discussed earlier in Module 1, that we will discuss each and industry in detail. So we will start first with the inorganic industry. So this will include sulfur industry, nitrogen industry, phosphorus and potassium industry, then chloralkali industry. So in inorganic industry, it was the industry which is well known since ancient time. So Egyptians have used the calcium carbonate in their life. Also the many inorganic chemicals, they came with the history. So as far as the Indian scenario is considered, the inorganic industry is not so much popular because the plants which are low capacity, also the initial investment is very high, electricity consumption is also very high. So these are the many problems faced by the inorganic industry. So we have already discussed the introduction to the chemical technology, the chemical processes and the chemical the unit operations. Also we have seen how to draw BFD, PFD and PNID, and also if description is given, how to draw, and if drawing is given, how to read that we have discussed. So starting with the inorganic industry, we will discuss in module sulfur and sulfuric acid. So what we will discuss in this one, first we will see the history, then we will go for the properties, then we will see the consumption pattern of each raw material sources, then there will be different processes. So in that one we will discuss the process flow sheet, the quantitative requirements and the process description of the process flow sheet and major engineering problems. And then lastly we will discuss about the economics of that process. So first we will discuss about the sulfur. So you have seen the sulfur, it is yellowish in color. So you may have seen in wooden transport trolleys where they used to use as a fumigants over there. So sulfur, if we see the history, we can see it is used in cave paintings. Then the sulfur fumes, they are used to kill insects and the fumigate. The bleaching action also was known. So if you see this one, so in laboratory you have done experiment on the sulfur. So SO2 gas which is used to bleach the flour. So the bleaching action was known already. Then Egyptians and Greeks used as a medicine. Then the commercial sulfur in Italy, we can found it was used in 15th century. So they commercialized the sulfur production in 15th century. Then 1735, the sulfuric acid from sulfur is commercialized. So nowadays the sulfur is mainly extracted to produce the sulfuric acid. We will see what is the use of sulfuric acid in later part of the module. Then the French company acquired monopoly over Sicilian sulfur and they were the major exporter of the sulfur those days. Then USA founded sulfur in Louisiana but failed due to the quicksand. So in USA there was a plenty of sulfur in Louisiana, but it was not economical to get the sulfur from the ores or from the mine because of the quicksand process. So the traditional mining was not efficient to get the sulfur out. So in 1894, the Frost developed process became commercialized in 1902. So to avoid this problem, the Frost has developed the process which is known as Frost process, and that was become in 1902. So in these years, the sulfur was not popular and it was only based on Sicilian sulfur. So here it may be because of the lack of sulfur use, and also the sulfur industrialization was not great on that era. So later on, when sulfur uses and its use to produce sulfuric acid was well known, then the sulfur use was become the more economical. So nowadays, if industrial growth we have to consider, then we will see it's based on the sulfur consumption by the country. So if we see the properties of sulfur, you know it is denoted by S and it has having the atomic weight 32.07 and it exists in two forms, that is rhombic and monoclinic. So rhombic, it has a melting point of 112.8 degrees Celsius and bearing specific gravity of 2.07 at 18 degrees Celsius. Similarly, monoclinic, it has a melting point of 119 degrees Celsius and specific gravity of 1.96 at 18 degrees Celsius. Boiling point for both is 444.6 degrees Celsius. Sulfur is insoluble in water but it's soluble in organic solvents and liquid ammonia. It exists in the form as a rock, lump, or it may be in molten form near the volcanoes, or the ground powder which is in Louisiana, USA, or the sublime powder which we say the flower of sulfur. If you see the melter surface or melter ores, so it is in pyrite form, FeS2, chalcopyrite, that is a copper and ferrous sulfide ore, then pyritite, that is FeNS, then sphalerite, that is zinc sulfide, then galena, PbS, arsenopyrite having the arsenic, and the pentalandite which is having the FeNi9 and acid. So these are the pyrites which may be used to get the sulfur. If you see the consumption pattern, then 80 to 90% is straightway converted to oxides, that is sulfur dioxide and sulfur trioxide. Then majorly it was to produce the sulfuric acid, or we used to produce oleum, which is nothing but a mixture of sulfuric acid and the sulfur trioxide. The end users of the sulfur, so they are used to form the sulfur carbon sulfide, the phosphorus pentasulfide, or it's used in rubber vulcanization agent. Then it's used in gunpowders, then manufacturing of sulfur dyes, and then sulfur concrete, or in paper manufacturing. The raw material sources of the sulfur, so it can be obtained directly as an elemental form, or it can be obtained from the pyrites, which is mainly sulfides of iron, FeS, or it may be from sour gas, that is from natural gas which contains hydrogen disulfide. In India, if we see the pyrite deposits, we can find in Amazore, that is in Rohta district of Bihar, or we can find in Puga Valley in Kashmir. But it's very difficult to mine due to the terrain conditions in the Kashmir. And the alternative sources for the sulfurs are, we can recover in the elemental form from the petroleum refineries, and that is done in Madras refinery in India. Also, it can from the zinc and copper smelters, where we get the byproduct as sulfuric acid. Also, sulfuric acid we can obtain directly from the pyrites. Then the sulfuric acid, however, is a byproduct of the fertilizers, smelting, and non-ferrous metal industry. So that we can directly get from the smelters. Also, it's a byproduct of the fertilizer industry. Then India, in Sindri, there are two plants which based on the pyrite. So from the iron pyrite, we can get the sulfur in its elemental form, and that we can use to process the sulfuric acid. So in this module, we will try to discuss the three processes of the sulfur, that is elemental sulfur from mining, from salt domes, that is used in USA, Sicily, and that we call as the Frost process, because Frost developed this process. The next process we will discuss is the obtaining of sulfur from hydrogen sulfide, and which is we can found in natural gas. So that is mainly used in industrial refineries to get sulfur. And third one is iron pyrite. So example we can give Amazore in Bihar, that based on the sulfur production based on the iron pyrite as a raw material. So that process is we known as the finish process. So if we see the flash process, so it is raw material are the sulfur deposits in salt domes and the large supply of the hot water. If we take the quantitative requirements, then for 1 metric ton of a sulfur, we require 6 tons of water, which is at 160 degrees Celsius. So that much amount means 6 times the water we require, which is at 160 degrees Celsius. And also we can obtain sulfur from 500 to 8,000 tons per day from the sulfur deposits. So we will discuss in short what we mean by this Frost process. So here if you can see, so salt, the sulfur, the mines, so sulfur here you can find in the elemental form. And because of this quicksand, we can't dig out the sulfur as the traditional mining process. So what we have to do, we have to adopt the flash process for the mining of the sulfur. So what happens over here? So these three concentric pipes, so you can see here this is first pipe, second and third one. So these three concentric pipes that are inserted deep up to the sulfur domes. So here it may be around 150 meter to 170 meter inside. So once these are inserted, then we have to pass the hot water inside. So if you can see the superheated water that is around 160 degrees Celsius or more than the melting point of the sulfur. So it is passed under the high pressure. So when it is passed, so it will go down, and because of the high temperature, the sulfur over here is melted. The sulfur melted and it is heavier than water, so it will deposit at the base of these pipes. So it will deposit here. Then what we are doing? Then we are passing hot compressed air from the innermost pipe. So the outermost pipes, we are passing the water, and the innermost pipe, we are passing the hot compressed air. So when we pass the hot compressed air over here, then what happens? The sulfur which is deposited over here, that will become less dense because of the air. And as it has become less dense, we can remove from this middle pipe. So you can see molten sulfur we are recovering from this side. So what we are doing? We are passing hot water to melt sulfur. The sulfur will deposit over here. Then we are passing air through the innermost pipe to get sulfur less dense, and then we can remove the sulfur from this middle. So water comes over here, it melts, then air is passed which makes it less dense, and then we can recover the sulfur from the middle pipe. So the diameter, it may vary from 2 to 30 centimeters. So depend upon the diameters, we can have the recovery of the sulfur. So what happens? The water which we are passing, so the rate of water passing over here and the melting rate of sulfur, it should be the same as the recovery. So the passing of water and melting of sulfur, it should be equal to the recovery of the sulfur from the domes. Why this necessary? Because if we have the high rate of this one, then pressure build-up may take place over here. So we don't want that. So we'll try to recover the sulfur at the same rate at we are pushing the water, hot water inside the sulfur dome. So what we are doing over here? Treated hot water is pumped into deposit of sulfur to melt it. So the water temperature is more than the sulfur melting point. So generally water becomes vapor above 100 degrees Celsius, but the temperature of sulfur melting is more than 100. So we have to use the supercritical water, which is having the temperature more than 160 degrees Celsius. Then water moves upward and down outward to bleeder well on outer periphery of area where it is aerated and discharged. So water moves upward and outward in this. So it will help to melt the sulfur. Then molten sulfur sinks to the bottom of casing and is jet pumped with compressed air to some separation units and shipment of the storage. So here the sulfur is heavier, it will sink to the bottom, and the air we are pushing to make the sulfur less dense, and we will recover, and that we can ship for the storage. Then filtration sometime is done to remove carbonaceous and mineral matter. So if we see the process flow diagram for the sulfur, then we will see each and every part. So here we are having the treated water. So treated water to remove any impurities and any other material. Then that will come here. So here the heat exchanger. So we are burning it with the fuel. So whatever heat is released over here, it is used to heat the water. So water under pressure can gain temperature up to 160 to 180 degrees Celsius, which is just above the melting point of the sulfur. And the pressure is around 25 atmospheres. So that supercritical water fluid at high pressure were passing through the outer casing of the pipes. So that will come and that will melt the sulfur over here. Then the air, it is a compressor, so air is compressed from the innermost pipe, so it will compress and it will make the sulfur less dense. And then being the sulfur less dense, it can remove from the middle pipe. So outermost water, innermost air, and the middle we have the sulfur. So sulfur will go over here, then sulfur over here, we can solidify it and we can ship in shipment through rail or the water, or we can have the filter which is optional to remove the contaminants, and that we can again ship is in the molten form. So the sulfur we can ship in solidified form, or we can ship in the molten form. So generally this is used for the shipment because we get the more pure form of the sulfur. In water over here, so the breed water to well for the recovery, and the aerators are there. So wastewater which contains the scale forming salt and H2O, that is removed from this one. So this is the fast process of the recovery of the sulfur from the sulfur dumps. So here, what are the major engineering problems in this one? So here, heat transfer in melting and shipping operation. So that is the end operation of the sulfur. How to pass sulfur to the consumption site. So this is the one major engineering problem. Then finding suitable sources of treated water. So as we know, the 6 times water we needed to pump into the well to get the sulfur. So we have to find a source of the treated water over there. So it may happen that there may be no source of water nearby the sulfur mining. So in this case, we have to arrange for the treated water in this case. And the next one is corrosion. Corrosion is a basic problem because sulfur, it may have the agents which may corrode the inner lining of the pipes. So that also the major problem for the sulfur recovery. So the next process, we will see the production of the sulfur from the hydrogen sulfide. Chemical reaction in H2S used for the sulfur recovery. So here we can see the H2S is first combusted and we get the sulfur dioxide and the water. So it is the exothermic reaction. Then what happened? The sulfur dioxide reacted with this and we get the elemental sulfur, which is again the exothermic reaction. So what happens in this one? The simultaneously reduction and oxidation takes place and we get the elemental sulfur. So H2S, we can have the elemental sulfur in the purer form. So the raw materials, so we get H2S from the natural gas and the petroleum refinery streams and recovered by scrubbing with ethanolamide and high temperature stripping. Then quantity requirement if we see, then 1 metric ton of sulfur and 100% yield if we consider, then we require about 1.2 tons of sulfur dioxide and the air for combustion is around 1700 Newton meter cube. The plant capacity is being 20 to 600 tons a day. So here what happening? So sulfur dioxide and the air is burned in a reaction. So we can see previously in chemical reactions. The product SO2 oxidizes H2S in 2-stage catalytic converter with intercooling and condensing. Then the final waste is scrubbed with the molten sulfur. So H2S air is burned, then SO2 oxidizes H2S, we get the sulfur. So it is done in 2-stage catalytic converter and the final gas is scrubbed with the molten sulfur. So you can see over here, the sulfur dioxide and the air, they will come in a furnace. So here what is happening, it will be heated and the oxidation will take place. So water which is coming, so being this exothermic reaction, the heat will be evolved and we can recover that heat at the process steam. Then the cooled and gases which is containing sulfur dioxide, water, H2S and air, so that comes in the first reactor. So what happens in first reactor? The process will take place and the oxidation reduction reaction will take place and the reaction temperature will go up to 400 degrees Celsius, getting conversion of 70 to 80%. So here the first combustion will take place, and here the next reaction will take place over here. We can have this one with the help of the bauxite catalyst. Then here the reaction temperature is going up due to the exothermic reaction. So we can cool it with the help of condenser and using water as a coolant. So we can make the temperature up to 150 degrees Celsius. So we will lower down from 400 to 150 degrees Celsius. And then we can pass to the second reactor. So what happens over here? So whatever the leftover, it can be converted into the second reactor. So this we can say it is at higher stage or hot stage we can say, and here we can say the cold stage because it is relatively the lower temperature over here. So here whatever the remaining gases, they are converted over here and it will rise to 260 degrees Celsius, and then we are condensing it and we get whatever the sulfur we get, we are solidifying or we can ship in the molten form. The sulfur, the remaining one or the waste gases, we can send into scrubber and we scrub the waste gases, or the molten sulfur, if it contains any other waste gases, we can directly send to the scrubber. So again we will take short loop. The H2S and air is burned over here. Then the gases we fed to the first reactor where temperature will rise up to 400 degrees Celsius, having 70 to 80% conversion. It is cooled to 150 degrees Celsius and fed to the second reactor where remaining conversion takes place. The temperature will rise to 60 degrees Celsius. Then we are again cooling it up to 150 degrees Celsius, and whatever the sulfur we get, we are passing for the shipment. The waste gases we can pass to the scrubber. So here what are the major engineering problems? Here two-stage reactor design for exothermic SO2 oxidation of H2S. So we have seen here the two-stage reactor, means the reaction will take place in these two stages of this one, because high temperature will not favor the reaction. So oxidation of H2S being the exothermic, so as per the Leach-Atlas principle, so what happens? So it will take place, or the forward equilibrium or the forward reaction which can take place at a lower temperature. So we have seen the oxidation, it will evolve the heat and that heat will restrict the further conversion. So in this case, this two-stage reactor design becomes the major engineering problem. Then the 70 to 80% conversion in the first stage at 300 to 400 degrees Celsius range, followed by the 250 to 300 degrees Celsius operation in second reactor to obtain the favorable equilibrium. So we are lowering down the temperature to obtain the forward rate of the reaction. Then heat exchange for the molten sulfur handling that we have seen in the Frost process also. Then the corrosion problem and the final cleaning of the stack gases. As the SO2 and the other gases which cause the environmental concern, so we have to take care of those gases and we have to design the process to minimize the evolution of those gases. So we have to check the whatever the ppm level or ppb level in the final gas. Then the next process comes is the finish process. So here we are recovering elemental sulfur from the pyrites. So here we can see how it takes place. So here iron pyrite at 1300 degrees Celsius and given atmosphere, so it will take the thermal dissociation. So in its processes we have seen the thermal dissociation. So what happens? The FeS and the sulfur, they will dissociate. So we can see sulfur we can get and the iron pyrite. So it is the endothermic reaction, or we have to provide the heat over here. Then the general combustion reaction. So here whatever the carbon, hydrogen and sulfur containing compounds, they will be combusted with the help of oxygen and we will get the sulfur dioxide, then hydrogen sulfide, carbon monoxide, then many other the gases we can get in the combustion reaction. The next comes is the sulfur recovery from the gases or the cold stage. So here the hydrogen sulfide reacted with sulfur dioxide, we are using the alumina catalyst and 280 degrees Celsius, we get the sulfur in elemental form. So this we have seen the earlier process. Then we can get the sulfur by roasting of FES. So here we can get the sulfur in the SO2 form. So the pyrrhotite, so this we are burning at 1 atmosphere and 1000 degrees Celsius. So we are getting Fe2O3 and we get the sulfur dioxide. So here the sulfur we get in the form of the sulfur dioxide, and that we can pass to the sulfuric acid production. So this is the exothermic reaction. So we can see here is the endothermic reaction and here is the exothermic reaction. So we will see how they impact on the process design. If you see the quantitative requirement of this one, so if we are getting 1 ton of elemental sulfur, that is 99% purity and 92% total recovery, then the pyrite ore we require about 4.4 tons, limestone we require about 0.65 tons, then fuel oil to burn we require about 0.76 tons, then the water 25 tons, and the electricity consumption is around 1800 kilowatts hour. And the co-products we get sulfur dioxide about 1.2 tons, which is sent to the sulfuric acid recovery, then Fe2O3 about 2.8 tons from FES roasting. So here electricity 3200 total consumption or 1400 kilowatt hour net consumption of the electricity. The capacity of plants, so it's around 250 tons per day if we are getting the elemental sulfur.